Welcome to the second lecture in Operations and Programming. Today we're going to take a look at cable and the basics of advertising, and we're going to start by looking at cable. Now cable, unlike broadcasting, cable systems depend mostly on subscriber fees, whereas broadcasting depends almost entirely on advertisers. And let's talk just briefly about a little bit of terminology. Note that there's a difference between cable systems like Comcast and Time Warner and cable network stations like USA, ESPN, MTV, etc. A cable system is made up of various cable stations and broadcast station offerings. Okay, so just remember there's a difference between cable systems and cable channels. Cable systems fill their multiple channels with programs from broadcasting stations and cable networks, and then subscribers are basically the cable's bread and butter revenue. Okay? So again, Comcast and Time Warner are examples of cable systems. Okay? They distribute the broadcast and cable-only channels to subscribers for a fee. More than half of primetime viewing is still on broadcast channels, but cable is definitely making headway. Most cable systems also do sell a little bit of advertising on cable-only channels, but again, remember the bread and butter for cable systems is their subscribers. Now, the Telecommunications Act of 1996 actually allowed telephone companies to start competing head-to-head with cable companies. So companies like AT&T and Verizon are now offering video services to customers, and this allows not only direct competition, but more options for the consumer. The basic cable tier includes, at a minimum, local TV stations and all public, educational, and government access channels. So for instance, basic cable tiers in Commerce, for instance, carry all local Dallas stations like Fox 4 and ABC5, CBS, etc. Channel 8, sorry, ABC, can't forget that one. And the basic tier is enabled by the must-carry rule, where the FCC says that cable has to carry local TV stations unless they agree upon a retransmission consent, which is where the station actually demands payment from the cable system. When we talk about basic cable channels, those are channels that don't usually require an extra fee, such as ESPN, CNN, MTV. These usually are included in the basic tier. Now, cable systems do pay a per subscriber fee to the basic cable channels, and depending on the popularity of the cable channel, that depends on how much they can charge. We talked a little bit about superstations in the last unit, which is kind of a hybrid of both broadcast and cable. WTBS in Dallas, WTBS in Atlanta, excuse me, was the first example. It stopped operating as a superstation a while back, and now it's just TBS, and it operates just as a cable network channel. WGN Chicago is about the only superstation actually left in the country. Now for pay cable, such as HBO, these are also called what you would say premium networks. And in this case, on top of the monthly fee that a subscriber pays for just the basic tier, the subscriber will actually pay extra for movie channels like HBO or Showtime or other similar cable networks. Those channels are usually commercial free, and the cable system will actually split the proceeds of their customer service, their customer subscription. They'll actually split the proceeds with the network. Now pay-per-view and video on demand, with this, cable systems allow subscribers to pay a separate charge for just each program they watch instead of a monthly fee. Likewise, video on demand It makes the program content available pretty much at any time, and again, is charged per program versus a monthly fee like the HBO add-on fee or the basic cable tier fee. Advertising for broadcast and cable is an important revenue source. And really, except for direct mail, broadcasting is by far the largest national advertising medium, okay? And really, dependence on advertising pretty much drives everything the broadcast operations does. And commercial broadcasters have separate strategies to attract audiences and advertisers. When we talk about advertising, we know that the mass audience still exists, but there's been a shift in recent years to focus more and more on what is known as niche or niche content. I've heard it pronounced both ways. I prefer to pronounce it niche. Niche content focuses more on specialized target audiences, and rather than just a single homogeneous mass audience, because they feel they have a specific demographic they're going for. They think they can sell better to just that demographic, so they're targeting specifically that group of people. Now, any medium, whether it be TV or radio, has to decide on their commercial versus program content. They have to decide how many commercials they can run without driving an audience away, basically turning them off to watching. Because we are so much more empowered as consumers to have more sources to change the channel if we want to, or zap, as they used to say in the industry. I really don't know who uses that term anymore. But zapping, quote unquote, has become a huge problem because people have so many choices. They don't have to watch commercials if they don't want to. They can either mute the program, they can pause live TV, they can skip over recorded commercials and recorded programs. And so stations and cable operators and networks, they want to, if they can, introduce the maximum number of commercial spots without jeopardizing the appreciation of the program content. They don't want to drive audiences away any more than they have to. Their job is to keep the audience planted on their station. Well, we're going to take a little bit of a look at the pricing and sale of advertising. Sales managers have to balance several factors, and including sales activities, expected ratings, performance of programs, overall economic conditions. All these things go into the pricing of commercials. And so most large advertisers are now making their electronic media buys based on ratings. Okay? Advertisers are buying ad time based on ratings. The better ratings of a program, the higher the network can charge for the ad time and the better off their revenue. We were talking a little bit earlier about that most advertisers are targeting specific demographic groups.